So thank you all so much for spending your Wednesday lunch hour with us. We are extremely excited for the guests that we have today. Today you'll be joining us in hosting the Environmental Protection Network. We're happy to be joined by their Senior Community Outreach Associate, Shonali. She will be overviewing their pro bono technical assistance program, and they have sent out via email just within the last week over $500,000 worth of grants that are out there in the market right now that you all can take advantage of. We also have special guest Alicia from Lawyers for Good Government, and she has other colleagues that can talk to you a little bit about the litigation that's going on right now regarding the federal landscape. Super grateful to have them. They've really been on the front lines with everything going on in the federal space right now. So, we're just really appreciative for all the work that they have been doing. And I want to just take a moment to kind of give them their flowers for all the emails that I've seen, all the stuff that I've seen go out on social media, in the media, and all the work behind the scenes that we know that they're doing um, to just meet this moment right now that we all know has been um, a moment, is all I'll say. Want to give you an overview of the day. We'll have EPN and Lawyers for Good Government go through their presentation. We'll open it up for Q&A. If we have time afterwards, we'll go into our breakout sessions and then do kind of high level highlights from the breakout sessions and a little bit of a recap if we have time, and then we'll close out by 1 o'clock. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are, the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit is a grassroots initiative organized by a committee of professionals from Morgan State University, Baltimore Green Space, the HBCU Environmental Justice Tech Collaborative, and a ton more organizations. And we mostly aim to achieve the 4 objectives that you see on the right of the screen. We want to increase awareness of the most pressing environmental issues. We would like to support organizations in building capacity to optimize funding and capture new funding. We want to start to develop a synchronized agenda across the region, across sectors, across different types of organizations in the private and public sectors. And most importantly, I would say we want to create a safe space to have dialogue around the challenges that we're facing in our sector. Thank you so much to our amazing host committee. Thank you, Dr. Linda Bear. I see you on the call. Thank you to Eileen. And thank you so much to all of our incredible partners that I can see are on the call as well. A little bit of information around the impact that we've been able to create over the last 15 months or so. Thank you again to everybody who's participating in this call, here to soak up this incredible information. And thank you to over 1,000 people in this region who have, given us information on what priorities should be around climate, what is the most pressing topics that we should focus on in our events, and what is of importance to them as far as what needs to be focused on in the public and private sector in our climate and environmental space. So that brings my kind of intro and presentation to a close. I'll hand it over to Shonali.
Thank you, Kari. I am gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. All right. And if anyone, Alicia or Kari, I can see you guys. If you give me a thumbs up if you guys are able to see that.
Yep, I can see it.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much. And thank you so much, Kari, for hosting us here today. I went to the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit last year. I really enjoyed myself and certainly enjoyed getting to know a lot of the groups that are living and working around Baltimore. So as Curie said, my name is Shonali Palacios, and I work as a senior community outreach associate for the Environmental Protection Network. I'm here today to talk a little bit about our work and what we do, and how we could potentially be of service to you, your organization, or your community. Let's see here. All right. So the Environmental Protection Network, or EPN, is a 501c3 nonprofit that works to build the capacity of environmental agencies like the EPA and the communities they serve. We were founded around 2017. If you'll remember, there was a large exodus of folks who worked in the Environmental Protection Agency in the government at that time. A lot of those folks left and came to form our network. Originally, their scope of work was more in the policy realm of things, so they were commenting on things that the agency was doing. But as our work progressed, we realized, hey, these folks, they have incredible amount of technical knowledge and a lot of institutional knowledge that we can leverage for the benefit of our communities. So 2 more programs were born out of that. One is our EPA mentorship and recruitment program, where our volunteers will go into primarily HBCUs and Native colleges and talk to the kids there about a career in government, and what that could look like for them. And then the other program is what I'm here to talk about today, our pro bono technical assistance program, which is where I work. So under that program, essentially are now over 650. These slides are slightly old, so it might be closer to 700 now. EPA alumni volunteers volunteer their time completely pro bono with community groups, small governments, and even individuals that we work with to further their environmental justice goals. They bring, all their technical expertise to the table, as well as a lot of knowledge of how to communicate with the government and how to get things done. You can see some small stats there. This is what our technical assistance model looks like by and large. You can see starting off with the sort of largest tier, which is mass emails, like Curry mentioned, funding guides and updates on the federal landscape. Then we do webinars and convening. So let's say if EPA repealed the endangerment finding, repealed a bunch of greenhouse gas emission laws, for example, we might do a webinar about what that might mean for you, where we'll take questions as well. Then we do office hours on things we find our communities tend to, really need. So SAM.gov registration is one of those things. I've helped a lot of people register for SAM.gov. Or like budget office hours. How do you make a budget? How do you calculate our indirect cost? So on and so forth. But really, the bulk of our work really does lie within that last tier, the one-on-one support, which is just us meeting with communities, ascertaining their needs, and trying to support however we can, whether that's through internal help or through an external referral to partners like Lawyers for Good Government, who can cover areas of work that we can't. This is what our technical assistance process looks like. You would basically just complete EPN's technical assistance request form, which is on our website, get assistance from an outreach associate like myself, meet with that associate for an intake meeting to figure out, what your goals are, what we want, and how we can potentially help, and then get connected with volunteer partners or TA providers. The letters TA come up a lot in this presentation. It just stands for technical assistance. This is a large map of our associates. So although we are a small nonprofit, I think we're around 20 some staff now, we are a national nonprofit. So we do work all over the country, and you can see me there in EPA Region 3, which is just the Mid-Atlantic, so Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And I live and work out of Washington, D.C., so if you're around here, always feel free to reach out to me and we can get coffee or something. But all that to say, we do work in all states and in the U.S. territories as well. This is just a broad list of types of technical expertise that we have within our network. You'll see this maps on pretty much exactly to various offices and departments at EPA, because that's where we're sourcing our knowledge from. We certainly have deeper benches in some of these subjects than others, but generally we'll have some expertise in all of these. So if any of this looks like, oh, I could really use some technical help related to a brownfield near me, you can contact EPN. I am gonna next kind of go through two quick examples of our work because I think the idea of technical assistance is very nebulous and confusing. Before I get into this, I do want to note that these are two very specific examples. We work on a case-by-case basis with communities according to community needs. So this isn't like encompassing of all that EPN does. I would say, or what I tell people generally is I always err on the side of, if you have a problem, if you think we might be able to help, just come to us. If we can't help, at least maybe we can try and refer you out, or we'll just tell you, hey, there's not much we can do here. And it just never hurts to send the request. So with that caveat given, these are sort of the two examples. The organizations have been anonymized for the purpose of this presentation. So, one of a group I worked with recently was looking for a permit review. A Coke manufacturing facility near them, created by U.S. Steel, had applied for the renewal of a permit, and the community I was working with wanted help, from an expert reading the permit, pulling out any red flags, and creating a public comment on that permit. This particular facility has a history of environmental contamination and also worker safety issues, as highlighted by about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They actually had an explosion that I do believe resulted in the death of a worker. This is what the task timeline looked like. They requested assistance through our website. I matched them with a few volunteers who have expertise in the permitting process. Those volunteers provided some written comments which were relayed to the community through me. As it turns out, the community group really kind of wanted to go deeper into the comments, ask for more help. So an organizational representative from them met with one of our volunteers. They conducted a Q&A and basically, just went back and forth on the comments to the permit. The community ended up being able to pull together enough information for a public comment. They submitted a public comment, and a little while ago in July, they received a response from the Department of Environmental Protection, which they also they also asked us to help, analyze and respond to. So you can see this was a relatively short request. All of this, these first 3 steps probably happened within 2 weeks. And the request as a whole, it really lasted from April to July. So this is, a shorter project, and we were able to get relatively fast turnarounds for them. This is a very different type of technical assistance request, grant assistance in Baltimore, Maryland. A community-based organization in Baltimore I had been working with for a while was basically just looking to secure some funding to continue their work. I knew them, well enough that I kind of knew more or less the type of funding that they were looking for. So when I saw a grant opportunity come across my desk, I sent it to the organization. They reviewed the grant, decided they were a good fit, asked me a few questions about whether or not they were eligible based on, things that the request for proposals had listed, and they eventually decided to apply. As they were going through the application process, they would send me updates on their application as well as questions. I answered questions and would send them resources like a budget builder or indirect cost calculator, sort of so on and so forth, until they were done writing. They ended up submitting the grant and actually received notification of award, which was great. We were all very excited. Unfortunately, shortly after that, the administration turned over, and the Trump administration, as they have been apt to do with most federal funds earmarked for environmental justice initiatives, they froze the funding. That brings us to now, a year later after this process began. The institution that received the initial funds to subgrant to this organization has been undergoing some litigation and managed to get the funds unfrozen. So the organization I'm working with is looking to restart their work right now, and we're assisting them, kind of making sure all of their I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So, to ensure they remain in compliance and that all of their, subcontracts and everything are good to go before they start. So that brings me to our next point and to talk a little bit about our partners before I turn it over to Alicia about the Fund Protection Initiative, which is something that EPN, NRDC, and Lawyers for Good Government started after the administration turned over and we started seeing a lot of federal funds being drawn back. So we provide legal and technical education. We provide direct legal, technical, and communications assistance on compliance issues and audits, inquiries and investigations, and connections to crisis communications, government relations, legal updates, and litigation. So, we have a contractor that we work with on this stuff. We also work with Lawyers for Good Government extensively. Basically, all of this is just an eye to sort of protecting funding that is, I would say, rightfully owned by the communities who applied for it. If you or a community that you work with or anyone you know right now is being impacted by this drawback of federal funding, these are 3 steps you can take. Again, it'll all be linked in the slides. People have various sort of amounts of comfort with being public about this, but there's no better time. And if you're worried about it, if you're worried about going public, but you're interested in doing that anyway, we can talk through your concerns with you. Although, again, we understand this isn't an option for everyone. EPN is here to help, whatever your request is, it has to do with grants or not. The bread and butter of our work is really that technical assistance. And, we look forward to continuing to do it no matter what administration is in office. So for one-on-one technical assistance, please feel free to complete this form that the QR code links to, and always feel free to reach out to me using my email, which will be, again, linked in the slides. So that's my part, and without any further ado, Alicia, I'll pass it over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Shonali. Let me just get set up. I don't think I can screen share.
Alicia, if you want to send me the link, I can share it from my screen. It looks like I have that capability.
Okay, cool. I'll share.
Great.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Shonali, for dropping all the gems and giving us all the information. I'm actually going to sign up for a session myself. So I hope
They're good, I promise.
hope everybody else is taking advantage.
Cool. And I just shared. Oh, great. Thanks. But yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm Alicia. I am an environmental justice staff attorney at Lawyers for Good Government. Yeah, just going to talk to you a little bit more about the work happening at Lawyers for Good Government and as a part of the environmental justice team. Great. So today I'll give you just a brief overview of the, if we can go back really quickly. Yeah, okay, great. Sorry about that. Yes. I'll give you a brief overview of the work happening at Lawyers for Good Government and then some information about some of the programs that are happening as part of the environmental justice team. And then a really quick look at some of the other programs that are at L4GG. And then lastly, we'll share some resources. Next slide. So Lawyers for Good Government is a nonprofit organization, and we've built a community of over 125,000 pro bono attorneys in all 50 states. And on the climate change and environmental justice team, our mission is to kind of leverage that community to ensure that the equitable distribution of what was some historical federal funding for climate, infrastructure, and water. And we do this by providing legal resources and assistance to states, local governments, nonprofits, and frontline community grantees. So as of right now, we've directly assisted 24 state governments representing over half of the population with implementing climate and equity policy. We've provided legal guidance to over 700 municipalities and communities on climate project funding, and over 30 million in pro bono legal assistance in 2024 alone. And we currently represent 13 communities on multiple federal programs in 11 states and territories. Next slide.
Apologies, there might be a little bit of a time lag in showing the next slide, but just please bear with us. Apologies.
Sure, if you could go back just one slide. Yes, this is just a kind of a general disclaimer to let folks know that, you know, no part of this presentation should be considered legal advice. We're trying to provide a high level overview, and you just shouldn't consider anything that is shared today legal advice. But please do feel free to ask questions, and we're happy to answer your questions. But we would advise you to consult your own attorney or your financial officer to answer questions about what specifically is happening with you. Next slide. So one of the first and biggest programs that the environmental justice team has out right now is the Fund Protection Clinic. And I think Shonali mentioned a little bit about it. We're working closely with EPN, but this Fund Protection Clinic is working directly with federal grantees to help them protect their funding that I mentioned in the last slide. That we initially hope to help them to get. And I think Joe just put a link in the chat for our intake form. And the way that it works is you can fill out an intake form and we will connect you with a pro bono attorney to address whatever issues that you're experiencing. And the idea is that we are hoping to provide support in navigating a federal funding freeze, a termination, or any other sort of adverse action that the government might be taking against grantees right now. And we provide legal assistance in compliance with program terms and conditions as well, and defense against investigations. And right now we are also providing one-on-one assistance for USDA, DOE, and EPA grantees, though that might expand in the future. Next slide. So we also have something called the Green and Equitable Communities Clinic, and this one is more about accessing funding and implementing projects. And it's where we are working directly with grassroots organizations to help them implement some sort of climate project, or perhaps execute a community benefits agreement, or even explore some legislative options and things like writing city ordinances. And so this is similar to the Fund Protection Clinic in that you can apply, and after our review, we can meet with you and learn more about what you might have in mind, and pair you with a pro bono attorney to help you walk through any legal needs that you have relevant to the project. And so it's tailored support for your sustainability, climate resilience, water infrastructure, and disaster preparedness projects. And that's not an exhaustive list. Next slide. Lastly, we also have a pro bono litigation core, and this is very, very new to L4GG. We just recently launched, and we have quite a few very highly skilled, highly experienced attorneys, many of whom have retired, that we're basically calling them in to provide some pro bono support to some of the high impact constitutional litigation that we see as necessary in this moment to fight back against the current administration. And so the pro bono litigation core is representing clients in the environmental justice, immigration, and civil rights spaces. Next slide. So on that thread, I think that I wanted to give a brief overview of some important litigation that is happening in the courts right now. I see Joe also just shared in the chat a link to the litigation tracker, which is where we are attempting to track a plethora of cases that are emerging as a indirect response to the Trump administration. We're primarily tracking things that have to do with some of the federal funding cases, but there are other cases that are relevant to, for instance, terms and conditions and other issues that are at the forefront. And so one of the first cases that we wanted to highlight is National Institutes of Health. And this case was about research grants from the National Institutes of Health that were terminated because of the current administration's express policies on gender ideology and anti-DEI. So the plaintiffs in this case saw their grants terminated because either NIH or HHS found that their grants were furthering these missions that were like were not a part of the way that the Trump administration wanted to move forward. And so initially, the lower court vacated those terminations and ordered the agencies to restore funding. But on August 21st, the Supreme Court issued a ruling that reversed that lower court decision. And it ruled that while the challenges to the policies themselves were appropriate for the district court, any challenge that was about reinstating the grants or having funding restored were essentially contracts, it must be brought in the Federal Court of Claims. So this, in addition to a couple of other cases, has been kind of the catalyst for a lot of some of the more recent decisions we're seeing. And so the next case, Appalachian Voices v. EPA, is actually a case that we brought in partnership with the Southern Environmental Law Center and the Public Rights Project. And it was brought in the DC District Court, and we were attempting to certify a class of all Section 138 grantees, which are the environmental justice grantees of the previous administration. And the district court on August 29th issued an order denying that class and denying our motion for a preliminary injunction to stop the EPA from the funding freeze that they had issued and the termination of the grants. And they actually granted the government's motion to dismiss. A lot of the judges' reasoning in that case relied on, like I mentioned, NIH and DOE California, and finding that the case under the Tucker Act also belonged in the Court of Federal Claims. Climate United is a case about the Climate United Fund, which is an organization that offers financing for clean energy projects. The program that they were funded under required that their funding be held at Citibank. And after the Trump administration issued a directive to freeze the funds, Citibank disallowed the Climate United Fund to have access to their funds. The district court initially entered a preliminary injunction in that case, but a 3-judge panel stayed that injunction, and they found that the court lacked jurisdiction. Similarly, that these claims also belonged in the Court of Federal Claims, and that the grantees were unlikely to succeed on the merits. Lastly, Global Health Council is a couple of cases that were consolidated, and it's where the government decided not to spend US aid and Department of State funding, and the district court ruled that they had to spend it, but the Supreme Court issued a stay. However, the funds that were at issue in this court are set to expire at the end of this month on September 30th. And so we're hopeful that despite the stay, the Supreme Court may issue a favorable ruling, and we may be able to move forward with the funding in that case. Next slide. So I just wanted to also give you a brief overview at some of the other programs at L4GG that are not environmental justice. The first is the clean energy program. Some of the initiatives that they have are elective pay and IRA tax incentives, with I think the latter kind of phasing out. And this is where they help nonprofits, tribes, and local governments to claim clean energy tax credits as cash payments. And they provide tools, guides, and trainings. They also have what's called the Clean Energy Tax Navigator. It's a free online tool that provides technical assistance regarding tax credit eligibility. Project Corazon, they offer legal aid to migrants and asylum seekers. They have programs that include border rights advocacy, work permit assistance, and rapid response for urgent legal needs. The project relies on volunteers, law firm partnerships, and donations to provide free services. And lastly, we have the reproductive rights and health equity. Also known as our civil rights area, they defend reproductive rights, health equity, and gender affirming care. I believe they've also recently launched an initiative to support trans identifying folks. They provide resources, policy updates, and advocacy support. Next slide. This is just a page for resources. If you're interested in any of the initiatives that I mentioned, you can feel free to scan the QR code to get more information. I'm looking forward to any questions that you may have. I'm hopeful we can leave this page up for a bit to see if anybody wants to scan the QR code. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. And thank you to Kari and Shonali for organizing.
Thank you so much, Alicia. So now what we want to do is open it up for questions. If you have any question that you would like to ask, please feel free to come on camera and use the raise your hand feature, which is docked under the react button. And you can also place a question in the chat if you would like, and we can read it out. We have a comment from Marissa. It was very helpful to have those extra details on what technical assistance can actually look like. It's helpful to know if we have partner groups that could benefit from the services, so thank you. And in the chat, we have the Fund Protection Clinic application link. Thank you, Joe, for that, as well as the litigation tracker. Thank you, Joe. And there's lots of resources in the chat. Does anybody have any question?
Thank you, Phyllis. I was about to say hi to you. I was happy to see you popped up. Nice to see you.
Okay, we have Phyllis from Neighborspace. Shonali is awesome and super helpful. I agree. And then we have Natasha. It's wonderful knowing how many resources there are available for folks to use. Thank you so much for this presentation. Okay.
Looks like Marissa has a question about elective pay.
Okay. Let's read that one. What is the status of elective pay? How long is that lasting?
Alicia, do you want to, I can try and take that unless you want to. Yeah. So it's unfortunately a little bit up in the air, and unfortunately neither Alicia nor I are super experts at elective pay. So if you have more specific questions, you can pass those on to the clean energy team. My understanding is that projects that are looking to take advantage of elective pay, definitely safe this year. Because we do have to amend the tax code in order to do away with those elective pay tax credits. But I think beyond this year, a little bit more up in the air. So I don't know, Marissa, if that answers your question or if you had something more specific, if you want to come off mute.
Yes, that answers my question. I had mostly just lost track of what had happened with it and was looking for the, the, the brief update. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have any other questions? I'm surprised. We usually have like 30 questions. Good.
We just
Well-
explained everything so well. Or rather, Alicia and Shonali did, but
That does mean that we had incredible presenters that were super detailed. So what we can do, if nobody has any questions, we can hop into the breakout rooms. So I will break you guys out now. And they'll be assigned automatically. Feel free to jump on in. It's just us. Bringing the recording back, wrapping up in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, if you want to take away from the breakout room, I would say yeah, it was very, very nice to get to know Eileen and Natasha and Elisanya. And I look forward to Natasha being in DC. And wish her all the best of luck on her move to Hyattsville. I think she's gonna enjoy it a lot and it'll be great.
Oh, appreciate you.
And Eileen, thanks for building more robust public transport in Baltimore. Excited to, as somebody who didn't learn to drive till I was 20, super excited for that.
Yes, we love public transit.
Hope it gets there.
So right now we're just sharing some highlights from the breakout sessions. If anybody has anything they would like to share, feel free to just come off mute and share. We'll wrap up in a minute or so and send you guys back out in the world to do great things.
I'll just say that Joe helped remind us about the resources lawyers for good government have to assist people or groups that have dealt with or are dealing with the federal funding cancellations or federal grant cancellations or pauses. And I was saying that I'm part of a whole other coalition of water groups. And the coalition has been tracking those, but has not had any sort of ability to provide any further support other than just a tracking sheet. We've provided it to members of Congress so that they know about it. That's about it. So I will be sharing the update and then resources from this with that coalition as well. I think people might really appreciate that if they haven't heard about it already.
Cool. Awesome. And shout out to Marissa. She's one of our great partners at the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. So she's always doing some incredible work. And hopefully we'll have our legislative overview session in January.
That's right. The legislative session will start again.
Yes, it will. Alrighty, well, it's 1 o'clock. We definitely thank you guys so much for engaging with us, talking, making connections, starting the building of partnerships. We want to give a shout out to our speakers, Shonali, Alicia. We're so grateful for you, so grateful for the work that your organizations are doing in the community. And I'll be sending out a follow-up email with all the links in the chat. And this video will be on YouTube. So have a great day, everybody.
Thanks so much, Curry.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.